talk about 90s R&B without mentioning the vocal Bible, Moesha Mitchell, and the sister of the true king of R&B, B-Rocka. Brandy's career is something that most aspiring artists dream of having. Multi-platinum albums and singles, maximizing her reach through television and product placement, and influencing music so much that artists after her consistently bring her up as an inspiration. She's so important to the genre because of her incessant habit of challenging herself with every release, basically raising the bar for artists even when she doesn't do so for herself, holding claim to a catalog that has no misses. This was extremely difficult, but it had to be done. So with that, here's a ranking of Brandy's albums from worst to first. But before we get into it, I just want to say that Ray J is the greatest to ever do it, from Wait a Minute to Sexy Can I. A puppet will blast One Wish every single time it rains in order of the money team. Salute! Number 7, Human. I personally don't think that this album deserves all the hatred that it gets from people. Even Brandy herself took a dump on it, but to be honest, it's pretty solid music in my opinion. After the release of her 4th album and leaving Atlantic Records, Brandy took the time to make music independently with various producers, from Timbaland to Brian Michael Cox. Many of these recordings ended up online in the form of leaks, but the project didn't really begin to take form until after she reunited with her producer that brought her her greatest success, Rodney Jerkins. This album contains much of the Europop fusion sound that encapsulated a good deal of pop music in 2008. Warm It Up, Right Here, and Piano Man are some of the more danceable pieces within her entire catalog. Sadly, it serves as a double-edged sword because, like much of the music from 2008, it doesn't age the best in modern form. Brandy has always been great at daring to be different, and the fact that Human follows the crowd hurts it a great deal. No songs or vocal performances here are incredibly bad, but nothing is really remarkable either. The one thing that I do give praise to is some of the songwriting though, giving us very, very vulnerable records like Long Distance, Camouflage, Acapella, and even the title track. Brandy does a good job of speaking about the effects of loneliness and feeling misunderstood. Makes sense too, seeing that some of these songs feature writers like Bruno Mars and Frank Ocean in some of their earliest placements. A little disappointing because of how safe it is compared to her other music, Human is still decent enough to not bore you to death. Number 6, B7. 8 years have passed since the release of Brandy's 6th album, and after taking time to raise her daughter and act on television and Broadway, we're hit with a new record just this year. Her first independent drop is one of the few bright spots of 2020 and feels like a fresh reinvention of her past work. Rather Be, Lucid Dreams, Borderline, and No Tomorrow have such a mellow feel, while the back end contains a good deal of up-tempos like Baby Mama, High Heels, and I Am More. Love Again and Bipolar are beautiful ballads to cap it off, and rightfully so should be here along with the Daniel Caesar album that came before it. What I enjoy the most is the cohesion here that doesn't feel forced or like an attempt to cater to younger audiences, instead sticking to her guns and accepting her age, but still sounding updated in its sound and fresh to the point that anybody that's a young adult could relate to. That aside, it is for sure not perfect. Hate me all you want on this one, but I hate Saving All My Love so much. Oh my god, it is so offbeat, and I was super afraid that I was walking into an incredibly garbage project. One song aside, this one is definitely a killer and is ranked so lowly largely because it's newness and it needed to have a little bit more time to marinate. But without a doubt, it's still better than Human. Give it a listen and swim in all those feels. Number 5, 211. Piggybacking off the commercial failure of Human and Norwood basically disowning it as an abomination, Brandy once again parts ways with Dark Child and leaves Epic after one album. Taking the time to restructure and find a new primary producer in Bangladesh, we get 211 during a pretty lackluster year in R&B. named after both her birthday and the death of her mentor Whitney Houston. Silence for Thug Tears. The album's songs differ from her earlier work as its foundation is largely built around hard bass and stripped melodies. I think that it does a good job of being sequenced in a way where the up-tempos don't overpower the ballads and vice versa, feeling cohesive in a way that can't always be said for some of her other work. Wildest Dreams, No Such Thing as Too Late, and Hardly Breathing are chill with deep lyrics on love and real life. Put It Down, Hardly Breathing, Without You, and Slower, which should have been a single, function as powerful dance jams. And as always, the vocals are supreme in quality. Sadly, this record didn't do much to evolve her sound, and like the record before it, it feels like she's following what's just hot at the time. Reflective and picking producers that were hot as opposed to ones that match her sound and style. Of her 7 albums, it's probably the one that I go back to the least because it's a little bit on the unmemorable side. Regardless, 211 is a solid release in her collection and catered to Brandy stans looking for something new. Number 4, Brandy. To think that this album was made before Brandy was 16 speaks volumes about her skill level. This comes directly after the cancellation of her ABC show Thea and doing background work with Immature. Shout out to Jason Weaver. In her debut, Brandy incorporates R&B and gospel to create a very well put together body of work. What's most admirable is how she does an excellent job of making music that feels age appropriate but still sounded mature enough to be taken seriously by older audiences. Superb vocals, a very, very timely but definitive sound, and a Ray J feature. In all seriousness, this is incredibly cohesive and contains no skips. Top-notch singles like Baby, I Wanna Be Down, Best Friend, and Broken Hearted. Top-notch album cuts like Sunny Day, Always on My Mind, Give Me You, and I'm Yours. There was a great deal of thought put here and it's noticed. It not being towards the top of the list is definitely not out of it not being polished, and more so because of her youth exposing her understandable limitations at the time. Her voice, while good, wasn't at the vocal elite level that it is now. But the music does such a great job of hiding her negatives through great writing and production from the likes of Keith Crouch and a young Robin Thicke. This album gave us a wonderful introduction and serves as the start of her massive expansion into becoming a household name for black girls in search of a positive role model everywhere. Number 3, Never Say Never. Total Brandy mania was in full effect in the year 1998. Touring with Boyz II Men and getting a boost with Wanya Morris on Broken Hearted, scoring her own show Moesha, and the ultimate co-sign and starring alongside her idol Whitney Houston in Cinderella. With all that in mind, it makes all the sense in the world why Never Say Never became Brandy's best-selling album. Her first project with Darkchild is so great because it gives us something we've literally never heard before. Everything about it is definitive late 90s R&B ambiance. The futuristic chords, the static drums, and the first time you really notice Brandy's signature harmonies that everybody copies now. I don't think the two have better chemistry working with anybody else, to be honest. The first half is perfectly crafted with spacey cuts like Angel in the Skies, Learn the Hard Way, Top of the World, and the title track, along with super sweet slow jams like Truthfully, Almost Doesn't Count, and Have You Ever. It's propped up further with perfect features from Joe, Mace, and of course Monica on the incredibly incredible Grammy Award-winning The Boy Is Mine. Huge kudos to these two for arguing about a trash-ass man with respect and dignity. With all that good going for it though, the project really takes a downturn in its second half with a series of incredibly dragged-out ballads that aren't helped by the fact that they're hit back-to-back. Everything after Put That On Everything really bores me to tears, and I kinda wish they just ended the project right then and there. Despite its flaws, Never Say Never's innovative sound carries it to a quality album and did a great job of giving us an artist that wasn't quite grown, but well on her way to becoming one of the biggest names of her time. Number 2, Aphrodisiac. I'll give you 6 syllables for this one, guys. Underrated as hell. Aphrodisiac is a near perfect album that does not get a lot of love from people. And well, it's not for no reason though, because it's sprinkled with controversy. Revealing that her marriage to Big Bert Smith was all a hoax, firing her mom's management in favor of Benny Medina, and her first departure from her longtime collaborator Rodney Jerkins, and starting a creative relationship with Timbaland, who helms the majority of this record. Timbo's influence is definitely felt as the album trades in her earlier futuristic sonics over a much harder, soulful hip-hop flair, and Brandy rides the new sound quite nicely. In addition to that, it's her first record in which Brandy speaks candidly about the tatters of her personal life at the time. Who I Am is one of the best songs in her entire discography for its rawness and its lyrics. The bareness in Who, Sadiddy, and focus match her style a great deal, and serve as the genesis of her alter ego Brand New. I absolutely love Kanye West's production on Where You Wanna Be, and one of her best singles in Talk About Our Love. Necessary is my favorite song and how deep it rides over the organized noise beats. The biggest crime of this album is how little attention it received in '04 and how much everything in her personal life pretty much overshadowed it, failing to go platinum and ultimately leaving Atlantic over it, as well as parting ways with Medina in a super brief and publicized partnership. Either way, Brandy walked out on her own and gave us something outside of her comfort zone. And while albums like Human and 211 do the same but fail in bringing something new to the table, this one delivers much more through she and Timbaland's chemistry and its range of eclectic vibes. I give praise to an incredibly underappreciated album. And the number 1 Brandy album of all time is Full Moon. Without a doubt, this is the most Brandy album of all the Brandy albums. You have a young woman coming off of a massive expansion to do her best and most complete work. Initially, I thought it dragged in length, but what really sold me is the level of maturity compared to anything before it and the authenticity in relation to anything after. She and Darkchild do their best at pushing their boundaries on every song and give you a healthy amount of variety throughout. The smooth cuts on the title track, Nothing, When You Touch Me, Like This, and He Is. The crazy breakbeats on What About Us, Anybody, I Thought, and All in Me. It has such a unique feel in just the production alone. Almost like you're floating in space. It's just so futuristic, man. Another thing that puts this above the rest is how Brandy stretches her vocals here, introducing her lower register, and it's done with just enough variation to not feel stale and going along with her normal high raspy texture. Add in the mastering of those harmonies that we know and love, and you have something totally amazing. While not as commercially successful as Self-Titled or Never Say Never, it exceeds both in walking out of the box, taking the best elements from the two without sounding super similar. It's here where you get that Brandy, the singer, is a total freak of nature that can body anything on wax, giving her the official title of the Vocal Bible, and rightfully so. This album is a time capsule of Brandy at her most innovative and vocally supreme, and that is why Full Moon is Brandy's best album. Got any more catalogs that you want me to review? How would you rate Brandy's catalog? Let me know in the comment section. Be sure to subscribe to my Mama's Garage. I'm Calvin, and I'll see you next time.